Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Namaste Village, or at least kind of. I'm down the street here at the beach property taking care of a few things, and I'll be here for the next few days, but I'll be here together with everyone every morning, and I'm so excited. It is a new moment. Monday always feels like a new opportunity to step into the experience of one, to the actual lived experience of oneness, not the theory, not the intellectual concept, but a lived experience. That's what we're called to encounter, a lived experience where we can actually live out the experience of being one, of sharing love, of loving, and no matter what. It really is that simple if we let it be that simple. And that is what we are here to do. I'm excited about this morning's session because I want to start off with a story that is all about the innocent mind that knows only one. Now, that innocent mind is within each one of us, but it has become clouded with all sorts of other concepts and ideas, all the things that when we were young were piled upon us, limitations that say you can do this, but you can't do that. So this is a story that took place in 1939, and it was at a university in a math department, something I don't know much about because, for me, the last math course I ever took was as a sophomore in high school. I had this dread and fear of mathematics, mainly because my father was an engineer. He was a great mathematician, and I just couldn't get it. So I constantly had my father telling me I couldn't get it. Why am I not getting something that's so easy for him? So I took geometry my sophomore year in high school, somehow got through the rest of high school without a single other math course. And then when I went to university, because I was a liberal arts major, they only required that we take one math course, and I put it off until the last semester of my senior year. Now I have to do this if I want to graduate. And I was dreading because I had this voice in my head of how I just couldn't do this. And then I found out at the last minute, as I was registering for classes, that there was one called Computers in Our Society. And somehow, though it had no math whatsoever involved in it, it qualified for the math credit. So once again, the last math course I ever took was as a sophomore in high school. Whoosh, I missed that one. But this is not a story like this. This is a story about a man named George Bernard. Let me make sure I say his name right. Danzig. George Bernard Danzig. Now, most of you probably have no idea who this man is, but I want to tell you a little story about him that's going to help us to understand that innocent mind that has not had all of that program and all of those concepts put into it. So George, it turns out, was pretty good at math. He was in, I believe it was his master's program in mathematics. And he had some issues with being in school. Primarily, he just didn't take it seriously. He would always be late to class. In fact, on the particular day where this story takes place, he was 20 minutes late to a very important statistics class. And when he came in, he tried to hide in the back. And as he was sitting there, he looks on the board and he sees two mathematical problems that the instructor has already put up there, obviously for the students to try to complete or solve. So he writes them down. He has no idea what they are, but he figures I better just go with the flow here and get these written down and I'll work on them later. So he leaves the class, he goes home, and he says later that he realized that these problems were a little bit harder than the ones that they had been dealing with before. But he spends the next couple of days just wrestling with both of them until finally he finds the solutions. He's able to solve both of these problems. And he takes his book with the solutions in. He puts it on his professor's desk and believes he's just completed the homework. Hopefully he did it right. And he waits to hear from his professor. He waits to get a grade. Well, a few days go by and he hears nothing. A week goes by and he hears nothing. 2 or 3 weeks actually go by and he's still wondering, did he complete the problems? Did he solve them correctly? Finally, he receives word from his professor that he wants to have a meeting with them. So, of course, George is very concerned, thinking he's going to get it for being late so many times. He's going to get in trouble or maybe even forced out of the class because he's been not really giving it all the attention that he's supposed to give. And when he goes to the professor's office, it's not just the professor there, but it's the dean of the department and several other people who he doesn't know. And he asks what is happening. And he learns finally that what he missed in that 20 minutes that he was not in class is that the professor was putting up on the board 2 problems that were thought impossible to solve. There had been the highest mathematical geniuses in the world for decades trying to solve these 2 problems. And the professor was just putting them up on the board to demonstrate or to show what an unsolvable problem, mathematical problem, looks like. Not knowing this and just assuming that this was the problem that they were all supposed to solve, he took them home and found the solutions. Of course, everyone was completely dismayed by the genius of this man who had shown so little promise up until that point. But we realize now that it was simply him not knowing that they were unsolvable, not realizing the difficulty of this so-called unsolvable problem, both the 2 of them in one sitting. In fact, he had developed what they later called the simplistic algorithm. He had found a more simple way, an algorithm that gave him a more simple route into the solution. And this is why no one up until that point could solve it at all, because they didn't know this simple route into the solution itself. I thought this was a really interesting story because it shows us that if we don't know what we can't do, if we don't realize what is impossible to the mind or to the intellect, we cannot be given the simple solution that solves every problem. In A Course in Miracles, it says there's only one problem and there's only one solution. Basically, the problem is that you believe that you're separate from God. You believe you're separate from everything. Well, here's the solution. You were wrong. You're not. You are one. We are all one. There is only one extension of the love and the loveliness of God, otherwise known as you. And if we can enter into that reality, that experience, just as George Bernard Danzig did back in 1939, we may find ourselves solving these what seem to be insurmountable problems, but because no one tells us that they're impossible to solve, we come about it with that simple realization that I am one with God, that I am the holy, perfect extension of the love of God. Love extends eternally. And that's going to guide us into one little paragraph that I wanted to read from A Course in Miracles, because it jumped out at me. And this is one of those selections that one really can't wrap their mind or intellect around. But if we just relax into it, just as George had relaxed into those 2 unsolvable problems, he found the simple solution that had evaded the greatest mathematical minds in the world for decades. So I'm going to read this one paragraph, and I'm going to invite you just to inhale it, pull it in. You don't have to do anything with it. You don't have to figure this out. Just see where this takes your heart. Your creations belong to you as you belong in God. Once again, your creations belong to you as you belong in God. To create is to love. Love extends outward simply because it cannot be contained. Love cannot be contained. Being limitless, it does not stop. It creates forever, but not in time. Not in time. Only in eternity can love create forever. Only in reality can love create forever. And this is why we are here but to accept that simple solution that only God is real, that only love is real. Because then we step outside of the limitations of time, space, and everything else that seems to limit us, and we step into the only true solution that could ever possibly exist, that you are that love. You are that light. It's happening now, whether you realize it or not. Now we just have to relax into it, just as George relaxed into the solution for those two unsolvable problems. Once again, being limitless, it does not stop. It creates forever, but not in time. God's creations have always been because God has always been. Your creations have always been because you can create only as God creates. Your creations have always been real because you can create only as God creates. And if you are not creating as God creates, if you're creating in time or limitation, you're spinning your wheels. You're not going anywhere. Eternity is yours because God created you eternal. Just take a moment and breathe in. In fact, close your eyes for a moment. I'm going to read this entire thing one more time without comment. Just breathe it in and see if, just as with George Bernard Danzig, if the solution appears on its own because you've come at it so simply. Your creations belong in you as you belong in God. To create is to love. Love extends outwards simply because it cannot be contained. Being limitless, it does not stop. It creates forever, but not in time. God's creations have always been because God has always been. Your creations have always been because you can create only as God creates. Eternity is yours because God created you eternal. So once again, it's the simplest problem, the simplest solution that solves every problem you could ever have. And what is that solution? Only love is real. This is what we say over and over because it is the only reality that we need, the only solution that could ever give us what we really want. Only love is real, and everything else, just let it go. Everything else is the unsolvable problem, and it's truly unsolvable. Nothing else can be solved except for that simple solution of love, of you, of eternity. So I'm going to welcome Vicki in and let her take it from there. So good morning, Vicki.
Good morning, Brother James. Happy Monday, everyone. And, I'm so happy to hear a quote from the Course. And maybe we can dedicate a few days or a week to just the Course the way we do to other traditions. We could do that. But, that's exactly what happens in our extended family community here. It's not a teaching forum necessarily or any of that. It's not even a practicing forum. It's an exemplary, it's a demonstration that as we love, love is the answer. Not that that's just some nice comment, nice platitude, but we recognize it, maybe not in creation, but we recognize it in the healing that it brings us together and individually in our world. That as we love, all the barriers melt away. It is what healing looks like, or maybe what creation looks like here. And thank you, Brother James, because you always keep it this simple. It is this simple. You know, many write all sorts of books and talks and do all kinds of things, and we all do all kinds of things. But in the end, it is this pure simplicity that love is what we are. It is our divinity. And as we love ceaselessly, love generously, love with every breath, playfully, and enjoy it, that no matter what's in front of us, that immersion in love rises up in us with a knowing of what perhaps our next step might be, or what spirit is saying to us. But it's simply the shortcut, the algorithm, the shortcut is love. The shortcut is love. I remember as a kid, and I probably told you this before, I was in the yard and my cousin comes over and he's mowing the lawn. And I'm looking at him and he comes from, I don't know, 3 towns away. He brings the heavy lawnmower and he's mowing the lawn. And I'm thinking, and he comes every week. And I'm thinking, oh my, why? I can't believe people mow the lawn every week. All over the world, people mow the lawn. How could that be? And I said in my head, there's no way God would make a world where you have to mow the lawn every week. Way too much maintenance. And I was, I don't know, 8, 9, or 10 in that area. And I'm sitting there watching my cousin Kenny, and he's mowing away. And I'm thinking, I don't know what's going on, but there's no way. And then the second thought with that one was, and there's no way God would make a world where big fish eat little fish. God doesn't think that way because God loves. God wouldn't make a place where you have to work so hard and mow every bit of lawn. I'm looking all over, thinking all over the world people do this. Crazy. But all of us in this, not just here, but through time, have had that kind of knowing that love isn't burdensome. Love doesn't cost. Love isn't heavy. We know that we belong to love. We know it. Maybe it did not get reinforced in our worlds. And maybe we dismissed it as a trivial thought, but it's no trivial thought that a creator that created us, we're not adopted children of some foreign creator. I don't know where that idea came from, but we have to belong to the force that is what true creation is. And every child knows this. And I feel like as we turn back to love and let our every day be devoted one way or another to the expression, the experience, and the giving of love, that remembrance that we came in with, what we might call our Christ mind, our divine mind, the light that we are, it allows it to come back to the surface where we perhaps, many of us came in with it and didn't pay attention to it enough. Or maybe we do remember that we did pay attention and knew there was more than appearances. But whatever the case is, we're making way for love now. We're making way for love and nothing less than love. There's no compromise in it. There's no situation it will not solve, but that doesn't mean anything unless we apply it ourselves wherever we are, and let everything be as it is. And remember that we belong to love, whether we call love God or spirit or our higher self, makes no difference. Love is what eternal is. It's what we are. And we help each other get stable there. And that's all we do here every day, for which I am so grateful to every face I see. I don't see the faces in the room in Mexico, but I do see the faces here. My family, Zoom family. It's so much fun. Isn't it fun to show up? And Brother James, thank you so much. We really, all of us collectively, we so appreciate your gifts. And we so appreciate your generosity of sharing your gifts freely every single day here. It really sparks the party. So it's the party of love. It is the simple algorithm. It solves everything. The other thing I remembered in college, and I was in the psych department, and I'm writing my, whatever it is, you have to write some big thesis or something. And I remember saying, and I went to the professor, I said, I know everything boils down to one of two things, some mathematical thing. Is there some mathematical thing where everything is either one or two or something like that? And they didn't know what I was talking about. But I had that, it was coming up in me that it was either love or fear. That's what was coming up. And I didn't recognize it till I did see the Course in Miracles. And that put a label on this. It was emerging in me. And I was trying so hard. I said, I'm going to write this paper on how everything's just one of two things. And I didn't know how to do it. And it's taken me this lifetime. So now when people come, or someone who has no spiritual background, I don't want to tell them, here, go do this book. You got to do it for a year, or go do this program. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to reinvent the wheel for my brother. I want to tell him it really is this simple. Here is the simple key. If you can hold love in your heart as everything, as your creator, as what you are, as what everyone else is, it will lead you into your next thought, your next action, your next everything. It will bring you into a full illumination of your own mind, because you'll see it in everybody else. Okay, Brother James, that's what I got to say for this Monday morning. And thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you, Vicki.
Everyone.
You're just bringing clarity to the core of what we're sharing here, which is the simplest algorithm. Love. That's it right there. It solves every problem, even those totally unsolvable problems that the greatest minds in the world are wrestling with. We don't have to wrestle anymore. We don't have to see ourselves as adopted children anymore. We are one with love. That's all there is. That's all that exists. I like this one line in the passage. It says, love creates forever, but not in time. It creates forever in eternity, and we are eternal. If we are wrapped within that love, which is the cocoon that holds us and protects us and feeds us and nourishes us, then we are wholly protected from anything that grows old, sick, and dies. The truth within us is eternal, and that is what love is. That is the simplest algorithm we could ever find. All we need to do is to find it. And maybe we'll find it because, like with George, he wasn't told that it was impossible to find. No one told him that the solutions to these two problems were almost impossible, that the greatest minds in the world had been wrestling with. He didn't know that. Now it's time for you to not know that you are holy, to not know, did I say that right? You know what I'm saying. To not know that you are limited. It's time for you to know that you are holy, that you are whole, that you are eternal, that you are love itself. There's nothing else that you need. You are love itself. And that's the simplest algorithm we're ever going to find. So I'm going to invite Scott to come up and to unmute yourself there. And let's see if we can wrap a song around this. Only love is real. Whatever you think that would sum up what this simple algorithm is trying to teach us.
I'm pointing right here.
There you go. You're good.
All right. And the music is on. Good. Well, this is my favorite challenge, to have a song with the word algorithm in it.
Good luck.
We belong to love, just like the stars in the sky up above. And whoever we are and whatever we've done, We've just turned to light in the eyes of the sun. As a matter of fact, our lives have only begun. The world's been waiting, waiting today to hear the song that only you can sing. And the tide is turning, and we're all set free to play, to find the simple algorithm with God's wings. And we belong to love, just like the stars in the sky up above. And whoever we are, whatever we've done, we've just turned to light in the eyes of the sun. As a matter of fact, life has only begun. Here's a part we can all sing. We belong, we belong, we belong to love. We belong, we belong, we belong to love. We belong, we belong, we belong to love. We belong, we belong, we belong to love.
Thank you, Scott.
My pleasure. And that was a Michael Stillwater song with me making up the verse in the middle.
We've only just begun in the divine algorithm. It's a tough rhyme, but I think we got it. Oh, thank you, everyone. What a beautiful way to start off our week with love. Only love is real. That's all you need. That's the simplest algorithm that exists in the universe. It's really the only one. If we could just let it be that simple and stop trying to overcomplicate that which needs no complication. So, namaste. Have a beautiful day, everyone. We love you so much. We'll see you tomorrow.
I love you all. See you tomorrow.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste, everyone. Love you. Thank you.